Hey folks, SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell here. Welcome to another episode of Leader Talk. Today, I got a special guest here with me today. This guy spent 25 years in the United States Air Force, a career Joint Terminal Air Controller, Tactical Air Control Party team member, dropping bombs on the enemy his whole career. He is also a two-time command chief in the Air Force, and he is a personal friend of mine, business partner with our leader development programs. Please welcome Chief Master Sergeant Retired Tim Chachi Pachasa. So you know some folks love you when they applaud like that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you for having me, as always. Like this, just always getting together with you is just it restores my soul, renews my faith in humanity, and just always a great time.
Hey, so tell the audience, first of all, a little bit about yourself. You know, your career in the Air Force and post-military. Let's get to know Chachi here.
You bet. So starting off, proud husband and father. My wife, Allison, going on like 16 years now. 3 wonderful kids. Oldest, Noah, just graduated high school. We've got a 9-year-old, Renan. We've got a 3-year-old, 48 with a 3-year-old. So that's great. Highly recommend.
You're still packing that heat, huh?
Still, well, not anymore. Allie swapped out with some dummy rounds.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you got blank adapter on there.
Indeed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, so joined the Air Force, became a TAC P, and did that for 25 years, and had an amazing time. And some of the best part of that is getting to serve alongside the amazing soldiers. Whether I was at Fort Bragg or Camp Casey or Fort Carson or Hohenfels or Bliss or Riley or Hood. Getting to live the dream, like serving in the Air Force, and then serving alongside the Army, like really getting that twofold kind of experience with that, and you really had a great time.
Yeah, and how many combat tours?
11.
11. Wow. Dang, brother.
Well, so it says 11, but like the Air Force deployments are a lot shorter.
Oh, I forgot those Air Force
the Army
deployments.
Ones. So
they're not like Army deployments.
In Army terms, it's maybe 5 or 6.
Okay. Well, hey, you've since you retired, you have really taken on the task of getting after leader development. And for the last 2 years, you and I have been kind of getting after this together. But you are the founder, owner of CAPE Lead. And so can you kind of describe what CAPE is and when did you start coming up with this concept?
So oddly enough, CAPE is a concept that I started developing when I was in E5 in the Air Force, like not knowing at the time.
Yeah.
And so really back in 2004, coming back from the invasion of Iraq with our beloved 3rd ACR, or now 3rd just Cav Regiment.
Yeah.
Really started focusing on expectations, and then really kind of dove into that more 8 years later in 2012 when we were deployed at the same time in Afghanistan, and then really started peeling that onion of expectations. And so since 2012, I thought about that word every day, for years and years. In the 14 years since then, quick math, 12 years since then. Let that kind of define everything. And the more I talked about expectations, the more I kind of realized how important perspectives and priorities were that we needed to discuss. And then I realized as I started talking more and more about those, how great alignment needed to be. And then in 2018, as I was realizing that those 3 concepts were coming together, a buddy of mine, Scott Ransom, we were deployed together in Kuwait when I was the command chief there. So I was going to come up with a leadership company. I was like, hey, I think I'm onto something.
Yeah.
And then I said, I don't know what that first letter is. Like, there's something more. And he's like, Chachi, he's like, you say it all the time. He's like, you have to care. Like you can't do anything in leadership if you don't truly care about it.
Yeah.
So it became caring, alignment, perspective / priorities, and then expectations. And boom, everything
awesome
since then.
So what's the significance of CAPE? Why should people want to use CAPE and its how it gets after leadership?
So I think the easiest way for me to explain it is really just during our understanding of airstrikes. For 20 years of the global war on terror, we did airstrikes the entire time. And when you look at the Air Force participation in those GWAT years, almost perfectly predicated on airstrikes.
Yes.
And what we're able to do to decimate and annihilate the enemy, as far
living
as
proof
goes.
right here. You saved my ass more than once,
And so I started thinking about this, and it's one of those things to where, at the end of the day, an airstrike is just a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, like a pilot in the sky, a JTAC on the ground. And how were we able to get that conversation right every single time?
Yeah.
Like I'm getting shot at on the ground. The pilot's up there having to fly, avoid mountains, avoid weather or other things that could possibly be up there. And they've got a different skill set than me. But yet we're able to have this amazing conversation to affect change on the battlefield. And we get it right every single time.
Yeah.
Because what I learned was, like, we had this call for fire, right? And the military is just calls for fire everywhere. You know? So we could do, you know, a just fire polar over, you know, we could do all kinds of calls for fire, but, you know, so it doesn't matter whether it's an airstrike or call for fire. But realistically, through that experience, we learned whatever fire you're trying to call in, is that we knew the bare amount of information that had to be passed in order to be successful.
Yeah.
We could ask questions, we could seek clarification without being argumentative or confrontational. You know, we had certain checkpoints and readbacks to make sure that we got everything right. And then through this, I realized that we don't have a call for fire for everyday communication.
Yeah.
You know, so that doesn't kind of play itself out. So CAPE, you know, when you go through and you learn this system, you realize that is a call for fire for daily communication. And whether it's going to be direction at work or with teammates or even planning a vacation with your friends or stuff that you want to do with your significant other, if you CAPE it, you can have a much greater success rate, deeper engagements, richer engagements, much more success.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You know, one thing I love about working with you, dude, and being around you, you kind of have a witty sense of humor that, you know, I you know, kind of think I have and everything. And you always come up with these snippets or quotes that, you know, even as we've tag teamed these leader development events together, you say something and I'm automatically like, you know, I'm writing that shit down, you know. I was like, dang, Chachi hit another one, you know. So what are some quotes that really resonate with you in regards to leadership?
You know, so it's kind of funny. The first one, oddly enough, is an Eleanor Roosevelt quote. And it's you know, it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness.
Yeah.
Shitty shit's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you can't control that, as we were discussing earlier.
Right.
It's like, you can only control how you react or respond.
Your reaction
to that thing, right? So that I've always loved. And life's going to get tough, and military life is tougher, and deployments and what have you, and just the most stressful of all things. But you don't have to be that negative Nancy.
Yeah.
You can be and again, not you know, so many people take positivity just to be like this, you know, turn a blind eye to everything, right?
Yeah.
Or you're just, you know, you're not trying to sugarcoat everything, but you know, the suckiness is going to be there regardless.
Yeah.
And so I've always really liked that quote. And then there's a lot that I like by Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And so you know, for what a huge you know, just, I would say, force for innovation he was, but a lot of people who worked for him knew that he was an asshole too. Yeah. Which was kind of weird. And so, but he had so many great quotes and like these Jobsian types of things. And one of the ones that I really like is like, you know, you can't make everyone happy. It's like, if you want to make people happy, sell ice cream. Yeah. You know, so it's really a little bit snarky, but leadership is tough. Leadership is the tough conversations. It's about providing feedback. It's about providing criticism, but not judgment per se, right? And so many people I think don't reconcile that concept for themselves, because like, you know, critique would be, hey, you did that wrong, versus, hey, you did that wrong because you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. You know, so like, I mean, there's ways to give that. And so I like that understanding about, you know, not selling ice cream. Yeah. And it's going to be tough from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and this week we honored the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And unfortunately, neither one of us, you know, career paratroopers could be there, you know, but we saw a lot of our buddies out there and everything. But I liken this back what you talked about with the Eleanor Roosevelt quote. Okay, here are these guys boarding these C-47s, heading into the darkness. They're going to do this jump behind enemy lines. Meanwhile, their battle buddies are coming up on ships and landing craft and trying to expand the beachhead and everything, you know, the exploits of the 2nd Ranger Battalion on Point Tahawk and everything. And those guys in those aircraft knew they were going to probably a good chance they were going to die, all right? But they didn't sit around and piss and moan and whine and say, oh, geez, you know, they're taking us to our death. And they're like, we're going to give it to these bastards, and we're going to take the fight to them. And they were positive in their approach. So instead of wallowing in the darkness, they lit a candle. And not only did they light a candle on the event, they lit a candle on the enemy's ass too.
100%.
And took the fight to him. So
100%.
anyways, I love those quotes there. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsors at Downrange Supplements. We'll be back shortly with Chief Master Sergeant Tim Pachasa, nicknamed Chachi, and we're going to find out about that nickname when we come back.
How you guys doing? I'm Colton Smith, and I'm announcing right now, Downrange Supplements is in your local commissary. If you're anywhere near a base and you have base access, get to the commissary and check out our pre-workout, our rehydration BCA formula, and our protein. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It is the best in the market. And Listed 9 Fight Company, my brand, is partnered with Downrange Supplements for a reason. And I tell you, their products work. And also, don't forget, we kill suckers.
Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. I'm your host, SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell. I'm here with my guest today, Chief Master Sergeant retired Tim Chachi Pachasa. So your nickname is Chachi. Is that kind of your porno name or something, dude? Something you want to talk to me about here?
It should have been.
It should have been.
Like,
okay.
like Chachi McPipe Layer.
Chachi
Could have been a great one.
And then you'd have to grow the mustache back too.
Completely.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you get this nickname Chachi? I know you J-Tax, you Tac Peas. You guys know each other by your dang nicknames and everything. So somehow I think it has something to do with your upbringing in that world.
Yeah. Oh, completely. So right when I joined the Air Force, I got my first nickname. One of my instructors couldn't pronounce Pachasa or couldn't see it right, so he called me Pachaka, which all the guys laughed at. So I was Chaka, like all the way through tech school and airborne school. And so I show up at Fort Bragg, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Chaka." And they're like, "No, you're not Chaka anymore. You're Kaka." So I was Kaka for like 4 years.
Wow.
It was miserable.
Yeah.
It was absolutely miserable. And so then, but then I moved over. I left our beloved 82nd Airborne Division.
Yeah.
I moved across the street to 3rd Special Forces Group to be a JTAC with them. And I knew everybody inside that group because they all came from my squadron previously, except for one guy, this great character named Chaz. And we went out to the Palomino for dollar beer night. On Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And he was telling me to go get him a beer, but he didn't know my name. So he was like, "Hey, Chachi, why don't you go grab us some beers?" And everyone thought it was the funniest thing ever. And thank God I got Chachi, because then I was able to put away Kaka.
Yeah.
25 years later, here I am.
Yeah, Chachi has more of a ring to it than Kaka. Yeah. So, I mean, this kind of sounds like a nickname out of the movies. Obviously, Scott Baio played Chachi on Happy Days and everything. Somehow, you're a little cooler than that character was, all right? But it has a sense of movie or television show. So, are there some movies or television shows that have had an impact on you, or kind of something that you use that gets after leadership or anything like that?
I am just a movie buff, and I'm not sure. I think I kind of started up that way as a kid in the 80s, and all the action movies. Just kind of grew up watching that. That was amazing. And then through all the deployments, everyone hands over the hard drive and they push all the movies, and you get this huge collection. So number one, I would say.
Well, I think the hard drives, the movies, they weren't necessarily R-rated or PG rated. Okay?
Right. Yeah, the all my tax files.
Yeah.
But no, like I won't even get into it because there's too many to mention. But Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
So if people watch the Ted Lasso series, that's just like leadership after leadership after leadership, quotable is absolutely amazing. But realistically, one of the shows, and you and I have had a good laugh about this, the TV show Mad Men.
Oh yeah.
Where John Hamm, his character, one of the ladies that works for him, is mad that one of her ideas got used for a commercial, but then John Hamm's character won the award for putting together that commercial, and she's yelling back and forth, and she's yelling at him. They're kind of having a go at it back and forth, and she's like, I gave you that. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And she goes, but you never say thank you. And he's like, that's what the money's for. And so that ended up being a joke with a colonel that I was with in 2017, 2018 in Kuwait, Colonel Andy Purath. And we joked, but again, like, there's so many people, again, like this transactional thing. Like,
that's right.
I give you money, you give me ideas or performance. Leadership has to transcend that.
Yeah.
So that whole, like, that's what the money's for.
And if I steal your ideas and everything, that's what the money was for, okay?
Absolutely.
It's mine now.
100%.
That's that transactional aspect. Yeah, I got it.
Or like even all these scientists who go create things at universities, that becomes the university's property.
That's right.
But that's what the money's for. That's what the paycheck's for. That's why they hire you. So that kind of becomes the antithesis to everything that I believe.
Yeah.
But then, realistically for me, and based off my understanding of CAPE, oddly enough, in a leadership context, it goes back to the movie Moneyball.
Yeah.
And where Jonah Hill's character is talking to Brad Pitt's character, and then Jonah Hill is like, hey, it's all about getting it down to one thing. And inside that context, they're talking about the OBP, the on-base percentage, and they can use the on-base percentage to find value in players that they wouldn't otherwise get. And then they have a phenomenal season. This is back in the 2003 Oakland A's, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that ended up being huge, but getting it down to one thing to focus on really helps out. And that has been my life's thing for the past 12 years is, let's stop talking about communication, because that's so nebulous. That's so vast. Like when we do after action reviews, like, well, we need to increase our communication. Like, no shit. Like, what are we talking about? The amount of information, the lack of information, the timeliness of information, the lost information, like just all the gaps in information. Like what are you talking about? So what I've done is, if I'm going to get it down to one thing, it's expectations.
Yeah.
So let's not think in terms of communication or just information, but let's think about what our expectations, how we believe this is going to go. And then just that little shift, as we've discussed, can have so much impact on our relationships, on our engagements. It's just amazing.
So can you kind of give us an example of expectations? You kind of use a great example that every time you use it when we are doing leader development together, I almost piss myself laughing. So
and it resonates with folks.
It does resonate.
And so.
You got to hear this one.
So this story is probably a lot more, applicable in my 20s than it is now in my around late 40s and 50s, whatever. But so here's what it is. So let's say you call me up like, hey Chachi, I'm coming out to Phoenix, Arizona, where I live. You want to go grab dinner and drinks Friday night? So what do? I go to my wife. I said, hey, John's coming into town. He wants to grab dinner and drinks Friday. Do you mind if I go out? And she goes, what time are you coming home? I'm like, well, I don't know, man. You get two paratroopers together on a Friday night who haven't seen each other in a while. Things could get a little bit crazy. And Phoenix has casinos and everything. It's like, maybe we'll probably have some fire water and some brown water and see what we can do. Maybe hit Top Golf, maybe hit the casino. I was like, maybe back about 3, 4 in the morning, perhaps. And so my wife looks at me. She's like, how about midnight? And I say, okay. And for most of you out there, you've probably had some measure of that conversation at some point in your life. I know we all have. And at face value, it's a great conversation.
Yeah.
I can go out. I can have a good time. As long as I'm back by midnight, everything's fine. Other than, it was the most bullshit conversation ever. We talked about nothing of substance.
Right.
Because midnight is completely arbitrary compared to our behavior.
Yeah.
I could come back at 3 in the morning totally sober because I drove you around and we just had a great night. Yay, huge win for everybody. Or I could be passed out naked in the front lawn at 10:30 at night because we started off with shots, and now Allie's all pissed off. Like, I'm back by midnight. And so all of this can happen because we're not having the conversations we think we're having through all this stuff.
Yeah.
But with just a simple pivot through the lens of expectations, rather than asking my wife permission to go out, because I'm a grown-ass man. I don't need to ask permission. Totally kidding. Allie, I love you.
Allie, I know you're watching.
Yeah, that's a complete lie. But now, rather than asking for permission, I say, hey, John's coming into town. He wants to go out for dinner and drinks Friday night. What are our expectations for this weekend? And that right there, even if I don't define that concept for you, if people learn nothing else, that forces both she and I to be as open and honest as we possibly can be. Because her having me back at midnight in the other example is like, why? Did she have something going on Friday night? Did she have something going on Saturday morning? Or did the kids have something? Did she need help? Like, we talked about nothing of substance or plans or anything else, but through this lens of, hey, what are our expectations for this weekend? And now we can put everything on the table, and maybe I can self-assess.
Yeah.
And maybe she tells me, hey, we've got stuff to do with the kids. Like one of my kids is in swim lessons at like 0800 on Saturday morning. So she's like, hey, you need to take Jax to swim lessons. Like, okay, maybe I self-assess. I'm like, hey, I have to be back by midnight because I got to take my kid. I can't go in there blowing zoo breath.
That's
like
right.
A bunch of other parents, right? So again, just through the lens of expectations, just with that in and of itself, much better integration.
Well, and it's evident in units, you know, that if the leader, if there's any kind of vagueness in terms of how they're talking to their subordinates or anything, it could cause major issues in performance, morale, all kinds of things, you know.
100%. And we just allow this this human to creep into our conversations just bit by bit. And whatever we can do proactively to remove that the better off we'll be, our units will be, our mission accomplishment will be.
So in the same thought of expectations, you know, you have this thing called Pachasa 8 that you use. And I think this kind of gets after not just expectations, but clarity, you know, for the leader and the led and organizational leadership and everything. Can you kind of decide, or can you describe the Pachasa 8 and how folks can use it?
You bet. Like in simplest terms, it's what the Air Force calls like the whole airman concept.
Yeah.
You know, but we don't necessarily outline it in specific ways, so people are left to guess how that was.
Yeah.
Once I accidentally, quite honestly, invented this, my career skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And it was a very simple way, and again, a very contemporary and modern way to find success, a tangible way. So the acronym ends up being Corporal Timid, CPLTIMID. So it's communication, professionalism, loyalty, teamwork, initiative, motivation, involvement, and development. So if you do the first 6 things, every second of every minute of every hour you are awake, you will find success. And the last 2 things, involvement and development, if you do one thing per month in a manner commensurate with your grade or your title or your position, you will find success. Do something to develop you, do something to help your fellow man, your fellow American, right? You will find success. Yeah. I'm 100% living proof, and I could talk about that ad nauseum, but those 8 simple things will help people find success.
Awesome. And how did you develop this?
So that was born off of, after the invasion of Iraq, long story short, my whole squadron deployed, minus like 4 or 5 people. And then come to find out that the person from my squadron who won like NCO of the year was one of the people who didn't deploy.
Oh, wow.
And I was absolutely dumbfounded. And I wasn't upset that I didn't win, because I knew a half dozen to a dozen other people who would have been just as eligible, just as competent and credible and deserving, if not more deserving than me. Yeah. And they didn't get it either. So I asked the squadron commander, and he's like, hey, listen, he's like, you guys had great job-related bullets, but you had no community involvement and no significant self-improvement. Yeah. He's like, and this other lady, who was a phenomenal worker, by the way, like phenomenal teammate, but she had those, like her job bullets weren't great, but she had the total package. And he's like, and you guys didn't have anything. I'm like, community involvement, like help liberate a country. Yeah. Like I thought that was pretty good. Yeah. Like, do I get points for that? But I did understand his point. Yeah. So good on him for recognizing that. He did lose some of the squadron, sadly, but he's still just an amazing guy. And huge credit for him having that conversation with the staff sergeant. He didn't owe me a justification. Yeah. He didn't have to. And so I'm really thankful for that. But because of that, I built a Pachasa 8, because not me, but no one who ever worked for me would suffer that same fate. Yeah. And so that was me trying to do my best to set them up for success in a very tangible way. Okay, give us the Pachasa 8 one more time. Communication, professionalism, loyalty, teamwork, initiative, motivation, and then involvement, development. 6 and 2. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to take another break right quick. We're going to hear from our sponsors at Downrange Supplements. When we come back, we're going to talk to Chachi more about some tricks and hacks that he'd like to share with everyone. And then at the end, he's going to give the Warrior shout out today. We'll be right back.
Downrange Supplements. As the brand of the troops, we produce only the highest quality supplements conducive to mission effectiveness. Whether it's our fully dosed pre-workout, recovery and rehydration, or Mermite protein, it's time to continually improve your fighting position with Downrange Supplements. Go to www.downrangesups.com today and take your training to the next level.
Hey folks, welcome back to the final segment of today's episode of Leader Talk. I'm SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell, your host. I'm here with my great friend, all-around great guy, veteran, entrepreneur, Chief Master Sergeant retired, Tim Chachi Pachasa. So, Chachi, you've had a distinguished career in the military, reaching the pinnacle of the enlisted ranks, 2-time command chief. You've done well post-military in business and everything. So what are some of your tricks and hacks that you'd like to share with the audience out here? Keys to success as a leader.
So keys to success, number one, I would say, is just give people benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Like that's an often misunderstood or misapplied concept, and you know, people
don't throw
mad.
them under the bus right away and something goes wrong.
Right, or they just cut them off, or
Yeah.
like someone like, oh, you didn't return my text. I'm like, I'm human. Like my kids take my phone, my 3-year-old takes my phone, and if a text comes in, because the way that I do my texts is like if I leave them unread until I respond.
Yeah.
Well, if he's in there, I don't know what text. So a couple different times, people have sent me a text that he's collected. Like, well, I wrote you. I'm like, write me again.
Yeah.
Like help me out. You know.
Yeah.
So benefit of the doubt is huge. You know, another thing or two. One of the ones that I've learned to absolutely hate is the concept of bloom where you're planted.
Yeah.
Because at face value, it's good advice. I understand what they're getting at. Like, hey, like no excuses, play like a champion, which is absolutely fine. But the problem I have with the phrase of bloom where you're planted is it puts all the onus on the follower rather than the leader. Like I could plant an orange tree in Alaska. And like, hey, stupid orange tree, how come you're not growing?
Yeah.
Bloom where you're planted, man. Like, just be awesome. Like, you need to create an environment that works for that tree, that whatever, to grow.
Yeah.
And as if you have no role in watering it or giving it food or giving it sunlight, right?
Yeah.
So bloom where you're planted, like I could throw that on a concrete road, like, hey, grow here. Well, it's not going to grow there, right? Completely ignores the environment that we put that tree or whatever's supposed to grow in.
Yeah.
And so I think it's disingenuous to that entire concept. And so that I've had a tough time with. And you know, people say that. And again, I get where they're going with it, but some of these cutesy phrases. Oh, another one, the whole shit sandwich way of giving feedback.
Yeah.
Which is good, right? You need to start off with something positive, give the negative feedback, again, critique, not a judgment, and then end it with something good, which again, at face value, it's good advice. I'm not gonna say it's not. But for the leader who really cares, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because that kind of implies that you haven't cultivated a relationship with that person.
Right.
And if you've done your due diligence to create this relationship, or as you talk about, to build that trust with somebody, I don't need to shit sandwich that.
Right.
If you come to me like, Chachi, you are chicken noodle sandwich on this, man. What happened here? Hey, see, I'm sorry, like I'm just, I am a soggy turd. Like
10 up and 2 down.
Yeah.
8 up,
like 100. What, like, or like in skydiving terms, this is a goat. You know. You know, so again, but again, like if you have that, like you can give feedback, and you don't need a mechanism, you don't need a cheat code to give that, but you do need to cultivate that relationship prior to. Yeah. So I get the understanding of shit sandwich, but again, for the leader that really, really cares, it falls flat. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I think the more those relationships are built, things don't end up going, off the hinges, Right. I mean, because these conversations are normal, that generally you don't have something that ends up in, non-judicial punishment or UCMJ, or worse yet, somebody does something that gets somebody hurt or killed or something, because we've gotten to the left of this with building relationships and everything.
And one of some feedback that I got one time that just crushes me to this day was my squadron commander just asked me a simple question. I was getting ready to take off. I was dating my wife at the time. I was in El Paso at Fort Bliss. She was living outside Chicago. And I was going to see her on a Friday, and he was really great about letting me go do that. It's lunchtime, getting ready to take off. And he looks at me, he's like, hey, are you expired on your PT test? That was the worst feedback. Some of the worst feedback and it was just a simple question, not an ounce of frustration. Yeah. Like he was like, he got to think that I was overdue. I'm like, no way. And then sure enough, it was. And I was like, that's right. I will fix that on Monday. He's like, I got it. I was like, sure. He's like, Chachi, it's absolutely fine. But again, he didn't have to butter me up. He's like, hey, listen, you're a really, really great performer, but sadly, I got this new thing here. Like, you didn't pass your PT test. Obviously, you need to recognize the significance of maintaining our stuff. Like, he didn't have to do any of that because he built that relationship with me. So to Lieutenant Colonel Nick Sully, if you're watching this, I love you to this day. He was actually my best man when Allie and I got married. We eloped before deployment. But again, he'd taken the time to cultivate that relationship.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, look, last thing I want to talk about. Talk about the importance of authenticity, being authentic as a leader, being genuine, and not using smoke and mirrors, not virtue signaling, not being a downright prick. How important is it to be authentic and genuine as a leader?
100%. Like that probably is the most important thing, because that implies that you care, and that's what I love about us. Yeah. As far as that was one of the first concepts that we talked about that we were absolutely rock solid in. Because like leadership, like if you don't, bad leadership is like rust. Yeah. You don't have to work on leadership skills, and they're going to atrophy, or a environment is going to go down the shitter, as far as that goes. So you really have to try. You really have to be proactive. You need to really corrosion control bad leadership and get that away, and you need to scrub it out. But you really constantly need to be scrubbing. And in baseball terms, it's, a leader can be there. You can step up to the plate, but you have to swing. Yeah. Like you can go yard and hit dinger after dinger. You're going to strike out sometimes. You're going to swing at a shitty pitch. Don't swing at the same shitty pitch twice. But again, like you really have to go up there and try. Like leadership is like an active sport. Yeah. And so caring is there. You have to care to step up to the plate. But prior to stepping up to the plate, you have to care about practice. You have to care about fitness. You have to care about your nutrition. You have to care about your sleep. You have to care about your recovery. You have to do all these things, and none of them are going to work if you don't care first. Yeah. And that's where like leaders just do this hollow bullshit, treat it like a checklist, or and again, like to your point, you just have to care. And that, like, the authentic part of you is, I don't care whether you're an introvert or extrovert. I don't care what personality type you have. I don't care your Enneagram. I don't care about all that. But if you're genuinely you, if you're authentically you, then that works. Normally that works, because there are people who are authentically an asshole. Yeah. Right. So that's unfortunate. You're gonna you can't help them, right? Put them behind the shed and just beat them to death. But again, like in most cases, the authenticity works, and for the people who try and fake the funk, it sticks out like dog balls. And so you really have to eradicate that quickly.
Yeah, I think you hear so many hollow, comments. Soldiers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Dude, can you come up with something original?
Yeah, water's wet. Yeah. Thanks. We're all better off for having heard that.
Nah, that's awesome. All right, brother, this is the part of the episode that I am most proud of, and I'm going to give you the honor of giving our warrior shout out today. Every episode, we look to showcase someone that is in the military, a veteran or a first responder that has done good things or has overcome adversity or something. So I'm going to turn it over to you, brother. Who's your warrior shout out going to be today?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much of this is public. So I'll just call her MG as far as that goes. But MG and I were teammates years ago, and that teammate is continuing to do an amazing friendship. And come to find out, like a month or so ago, as I spat all over your table, she was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer.
Oh, wow.
And so, having recently had surgeries and such, she's just an amazing human being. She's a phenomenal airman. She's a phenomenal friend. She's a family member. Yeah. She and her wife, like, we absolutely adore them. It's just as human beings, and her wife is being so incredibly strong for her right now. But MG, you and your family, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your love. Thank you for everything that you do. And I wish you the absolute best for you throughout this. And I know you're going to come out on the other side of this completely okay.
MG, thank you for your service. You're in our prayers. God bless you. All right, so how can people find Tim Chachi Pachasa?
You bet. Easy. You can go to capelead.com, CAPELEAD.com. You can look on, I'm kind of revamping some of my Instagram and stuff, but the easiest way is probably just to email me, Chachi, CHACHI.Pachasa, PACHASA @capelead.com.
Awesome. And you're on social media as well?
And I'm on social media. You can find me at Chachi Pachasa on Instagram. I do have a Cape Lead Facebook page as well, so you can check everything out there. It's been a little bit dormant for the past few years, as I've been working with some other amazing companies and nonprofits and such. So just really diving back into this now. So stay tuned, because you're going to see some epic content coming up soon.
Awesome. And the best thing I like about this is that between our leader development company, we're going to get out, we're going to assist units get better, service members get better, and companies to get better out there on the civilian side. So I look forward to doing this trip with you, brother.
Honored to be.
Thanks for being my guest today on Leader Talk. All right. And that's it for Leader Talk on this episode, folks. Remember, you can catch Leader Talk on YouTube. Give us a follow. See all of our episodes on YouTube. You want to see my book, Surrender or Die, Reflections of a Combat Leader. You want to check it out. Go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com or our website, pmehard.com. Big shout out to our sponsor, Downrange Supplements. You want to change your life, you want to get better, and you want to use a brand for the troops, go to downrangesups.com or available in your local commissaries. We'll see you next time on Leader Talk. Until then, keep pounding. Boom.